We have to get really good at our skills. We have to constantly get better and better. Educate. In 27 years, I don't know everything, right? We have to constantly, every single day, work on that 1%. Each and every one of us. You, me, everyone out here. No matter how successful. Because when you get successful, everybody's trying to knock you down. Everybody's trying to take that business. Right? So that you have to make sure that you're constantly on your game. You can never, ever, ever get lazy or laid back.
Today, I'm fortunate to have the current secretary of the Florida of Realtors. He has been a real estate agent for over 25 years and was Rookie of the Year at his first brokerage. He has been a managing broker of a company that had 750 agents in 9 locations. Today, he's the Director of Productivity at Keller Williams in Boca Raton. He is also the team lead of Lux Places and Spaces Group. I like that. In 2015, he was a Florida Realtors Art Pack chairman, and in 2021, he won the Myrtle T. Anderson Leadership Award for Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucia Realtors. 2022, he served at the NAR Board of Directors and was 2019 chair of the NAR's Business Issues Policy Committee. He's the owner of Levine Coaching Company. Let's welcome Jeffrey Levine to the show.
Awesome. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I appreciate you coming on. I know you've been traveling, and we postponed from yesterday, but got some rest, and I can see with your smile, you're fresh and ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Yep.
Excellent. Jeff, I like to kick off every show. I like to give everyone a little bit of background on you so they know where you're coming, because I think our listeners, by knowing that, things will resonate with them and maybe see some similarities, but also highlight your extensive experience in real estate as we dig in. So the first question is always the easiest one. Where are you from?
No, originally I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, spent my first 22 years in New York City, product of the New York City school system, and moved out to New Jersey right after that, and had some family businesses. We owned a Dunkin' Donuts and a chain of video stores, and that's when I realized I was a serial entrepreneur and that I could never work for someone. After technology was taking over the video store business, I decided to go get a real estate license, and that's what I've been doing for the last 27 years now. Started my real estate career in central New Jersey and became a managing broker for the first company that I was with. After you need 3 years in New Jersey to get a broker's license, became their first sales manager. And from that point on, it's been a ride.
You jumped into leadership right away. Do you think some of the entrepreneurial spirit, or just obviously being your own man? I mean, you're running the stores, the Dunkin' Donuts, having that experience, and then transitioning over into real estate. We're all self-employed, but that background and confidence that you had of running your own show, if you didn't get up, you didn't get paid kind of attitude, help you quickly move into a leadership role and then part of your Rookie of the Year?
It's interesting. I never looked at it that way. To me, leadership is something that just happens. Opportunities happen. I believe, I actually have a friend out in Oregon who I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but I love what he says. There's an opportunity in front of us every single day. It's just realizing the opportunity and taking advantage of it is what the challenge is, right? Every single day, we talk about these lifetime opportunities. They come by the minute for us. It's just realizing them. And sometimes we realize them too late, quite frankly. So I never aspired to anything or look for any leadership opportunity in that regard. I got involved in the leadership opportunity in the markets. At that time, it's not the market center, but the office at that time. And then I moved over to Remax. So they needed a managing broker, and I ran some Remax offices in central New Jersey after that, before coming to Florida. But, as far as my leadership journey on the volunteer side, it took somebody tapping me on the shoulder, quite frankly, for me to get involved. And I think that's the great aspect of every leader. And for those leaders out there listening to this, and for those future leaders, make sure the number one thing is find your replacement, find those next group of leaders. That's what leaders do. And that's what somebody did to me and tapped me on the shoulder. And then, quite frankly, they need to tap me on the shoulder a few times to get involved in the volunteer side of leadership.
I've obviously, most of my listeners know I'm a John Maxwell fan, and that is one of the things he teaches, preaches, is that true leaders create other leaders.
Absolutely. And actually, I am a John Maxwell team member. I'm a certified John Maxwell coach.
That's right.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because John is my guy.
Yep. I went to one of his in 2019. So it was just before COVID, when he was doing over at the Marriott in Orlando. I don't know, I think it was like 3 days there. I went over and spent it, and obviously I read his books, and I just love everything about him. And we could talk about the experience that week.
Tracy, it's interesting, because when I was running for the office of Florida Realtor Secretary, I actually had a John Maxwell quote that I would say every time I spoke. And John, it was one of my favorite. And John says, leadership is not about title, influence, title or flow charts. Leadership is about one life influencing another. And that's so important to remember.
Yeah, whether you're, I'm coaching my son's, youth basketball teams and everything, and whether it's helping that one kid improve through the season, or a real estate agent, move the needle, improve their business, over a month, over a year, whatever, to where they can look back and say it's made a difference in their life. I think that's what it's all
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about, because I always like to experience, if you can bring back some highlights from that rookie year, for the new agents that are out there. Or if there's a listener that maybe in licensing right now, taking the class, whatever, or thinking about becoming a real estate agent, what do you think are some key things that you did in that first year that really helped you out? I mean, were you working on the coattails of a mentor, or what was going on there that really helped you get off to a great start?
That was a great question. And I didn't realize it till many years later how important the things that we teach now are, right? And that's consistency and persistence, being persistent and consistent. And it's really important, and to be intentional also. So what I did is, at that time when I came into real estate in 1997, this thing called the internet was just really kind of new, right? Yeah. And there was no such thing as internet leads. We still had the books for the appraisers and stuff like that to come in, and the mortgage brokers. I mean, the only way for somebody to really, truly find out what was going on in the area was to walk into a real estate office, the local real estate office. Mm-hmm. And what we realized, there was a value. That was part of our value proposition at that time, right? Is that we offered value to the consumer. And fast forward to today, right? At the age where the consumer has so much information at their fingertips through the internet, we need to find our value today for the consumer, and we need to be able to express it clearly. Back in 1997, it was implied. We really didn't have to do so much. Today, we have to really be good at telling our story. But when I say consistency and persistency, it's just anybody. And back in the day, we had what was called floor time, and we signed up for floor time. And basically, we were the non-paid receptionist. But in return, if somebody walked into the real estate office, somebody called in, that was a potential lead.
Right.
So I told everybody in my office, you don't want to come and spend your 4 hours today? Give me a call. I'll be there. I took every available shift. If somebody needed somebody to cover, I took care of it. Getting out there, talking to your top producers in your office, talking to other people, let them know you're there to assist if necessary. I took every advantage of every opportunity that I had. And that year, I did 48 real estate transactions. Wow. And by the way, fast forwarding to today, and I'm sure we'll get to this, where buyer agency and true buyer agency is going to become very super important, as it should be now, but it's really going to become super important to most agents. 45 of those were in buyer agency relationship transactions.
You tipped a little bit on, and I think without actually saying it, or first thing I thought of is the NAR lawsuit and what that will actually bring us back to the real estate agents. Obviously, I'm on the mortgage side, so when I say we, I think the real estate industry in general, we need to be better at explaining our value that we bring.
Absolutely, we
All
do.
those things below the surface that people don't see we do.
Absolutely do. So, Tracy, back in the day, the people went to a mortgage person, professional, in 1997. Typically, a customer or a client went to a mortgage professional first, got pre-approved, and then came to the real estate agent, right? And that was the relationship. That was the flow of or they went to their local bank or whatever it was.
Right.
Today, it's almost the exact opposite, right? They reach out to the real estate agent first, and then the real estate agent, a good real estate agent, makes sure that they are positioned in the best way possible to become, to be that best buyer. And that's what I think that's truly lacking at times, is that making that consultation process, that conversation with the consumer. Consumers come in as customers. We hope we get them into a client relationship, and the only way we can get them into a client relationship legally under the state of Florida rules is to have a buyer agency agreement signed by them in order to create that client agent relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's all about showing value. And I truly believe that in anything that we do, any business we're in, the consumer wants value, and they will pay for value. They will pay for what your value is worth. And that is, again, what we have to get really good at as real estate agents, expressing our value, showing our value, and showing all the things that we do in the real estate transaction. I mean, if you go Google out there and you Google what does a real estate agent do in a transaction, you'll find lists of up to 176 things that a real estate agent does within a transaction. It's not about just opening up a door and showing a property and say, do you want to buy it? There's so many things that go into our services. And again, explaining, counseling, sitting down with that person. I always had this little soapbox I used to get on, especially when I was training. We would go out there and spend an hour and a half trying to convince a seller why they should go ahead and sell their property with us. But yet when a buyer calls, lots of real estate agents say, great, what time do you want me to meet you at the property? Right? Why is a buyer any less valuable or should be treated any differently than a seller in a real estate transaction? So those buyer agents that are really doing buyer agency at a very high level, this environment, this market, their business is going to be greater than it ever was before.
Yep. It was interesting. I saw someone posted, I don't know if it's, let's see, today's Friday. It was probably Wednesday afternoon. There was a post on Facebook, and somebody said, hey, I'm looking at this neighborhood, these 3 neighborhoods in my area, and what does everyone think about them? And I said, my response was, you need to find a real estate professional who's an expert in this area, because there's a lot of actually neighborhoods in between those neighborhoods that probably could satisfy you, save you money, or get you a bigger house for the same amount of money. And obviously to contact me, because I know a lot of them in town and I could refer them to get that expressed across in today's world. The we call market experts, right? Krista Mashore, she pushes out a lot of stuff, about being the
Sure.
neighborhood expert, 2 or 3 and just be everything all. What is your vision, what do you preach? What do you try to do to try to be seen as that market expert, so that these people are calling you to talk about the things that are in between the lines in some of these areas? These neighborhoods that, they see the new construction going on in neighborhood A, B, and C, but there's these D, E, and F neighborhoods that they're not seeing that actually offer more, but they're not advertising anymore because there's no more new construction going on there, right? You're just buying existing homes, which could be better built homes.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned I just got back. I just actually got back from Las Vegas. I was at the Keller Williams family reunion. I happen to be a Keller Williams agent right now, as you said, I was director of productivity for a large office down in East Boca Raton, Florida, down in Palm Beach County. Gary Keller just blew my mind. I mean, as many times as I've seen him, the state of the company address, the numbers, knowing the numbers, even somebody that's in the business that follows the numbers and tracks the numbers and tracks what's happening on a national level, local level, state level. I got to tell you, when Gary started breaking down the numbers and really opening your eyes to the fact. One of the things that and maybe some of your listeners out there know, I'm sure you do as a mortgage professional, but if you took a 25-year average of interest rates today, 6.8% is where it comes up. 6.8%. So people think we're at these such high interest rates because they remember 2.75% and 3% and 4%.
Right.
6.8% was the average over the last 25 years. We're at the average of the last 25 years. And yet people think the sky is falling when it comes to interest rates, right? So knowing, as you said, being that market expert means more than just opening a door or using the MLS or sending a couple of properties, but really understanding what's happening in our business, to the consumer, and asking the questions to the consumer of, what is your concerns? Why do you think this way? What would have to happen? How are you going to get there? And knowing the market, like you said, zeroing in on communities, becoming the market expert, knowing how many units are in those communities. When a buyer comes in and says, "Oh, well, that's a great community. There's 375 units in there, and the average sales price is this, and there's 4 different models," and and having that knowledge, the consumer says, "Wow. This guy knows what he's talking about. That's the person I want to work with."
Right.
And we with the internet, I think we've all become lazy. We just feel that we could just go out and Google the information, but it only takes you so far. And then how much information is available out there that contradicts each other? Right? What is the true information? What's the true story? I mean, each thing that you come up with may have a piece, but what is the real true story? And that's where we show our value. Right? The consumer is zeroing in on what they want. Usually a real estate agent has a broader market knowledge and area knowledge. And yes, one of the values you mentioned before, we also know what's coming online. We know what's happening. If good real estate agents in their market areas, they attend their community, they go into the city and they go into the planning commission and they know what's happening. They know what projects are coming to online. They know what's being built in certain areas. They know what roads are being constructed. These are all the things that go into picking and choosing the right communities.
It just made me think, I was on my community development district CDD board for 11 years. And, I haven't done it recently, but I probably need to get out there and give some color to the real estate agents of what a community development district obviously brings. But what you were just bringing to light to me is a lot of them, go on the internet and you get to 30,000 foot level. And if you really pin down a handful of communities and really get in there, and whether it's knowing the management company that might be running that community development district or advising the HOA, you're just getting in there and knowing those things and knowing what's going on, it can give you such an edge. And again, it might just be one phrase or one statement saying, "Hey, yeah, they're going to be replacing the playground set here in 6 months." That right there, just saying that, says you're on top of things.
Absolutely. And it's so easy for us as agents. I mean, especially you talked about new construction. There's nothing easier for a newer agent to master than new construction. Just go into the model center, sit with one of their sales agents, get the brochure, view each of the models, ask them if you can take some pictures or video, or if they have something that they could give you so that you can put it on your websites. There is no reason, there is no excuse that a new agent can't be a master at the new construction that's happening in their market.
I've had agents tell me, one and I'm thinking of it in particular, moved brokerages, because I thought it would give them a greater area of coverage. I mean, Northeast Florida here, where it's pretty big. I mean, you go down to basically Palm Coast, all the way up to the Georgia line, and west, I don't know, 50 miles to Stark or so. I guess most people would consider that Northeast Florida. That's a pretty wide area for one agent or even a small team to be experts at. In your experience, what do you we're talking about being a market expert. How narrowed down should they really be? Yeah, you'll go show a house in Fernandina if somebody refers you. Obviously, you're not going to give up a sale, and you're going to travel. For here, it'd be probably 30 miles or more to get there. But on a day-to-day basis in your marketing and really getting down to fine-tuning it, how important, or what is your advice that you give them to really own an area?
Right. Well, great question. So first thing you mentioned about agents moving brokerages, and I don't want to let that
Subject
go,
too.
okay? Because as a coach, the first thing I say to a new coaching client, I talk to them a little bit about their business where it is right now, and part of that is how their setup is, what their organization looks like, and that type of stuff. My biggest suggestion for any agent out there, brand new or seasoned, you know, instead of getting a new iPad, instead of getting a new MacBook or new phone or whatever it is, the first thing they should get is a mirror. And they should look in that mirror and they should say, am I doing the things I need to do to be successful? Because it's easy to really blame your brokerage. It's easy to blame your broker. It's easy to blame your mentor why you're not doing business. Look in the mirror and really ask the hard question. Am I doing what I need to do to be successful? That's where it starts, right? Because every brokerage adds value. Every broker adds value. We all have the same product to sell, right? Am I doing the activities that I need to do? So I'm going to start. That's number one, right? Number two, going back to you're asking, the Broward Palm Beaches and St. Lucie Realtors, which I was president of. I was actually the president that combined all of that to create the third largest merger in NAR history, is 111 miles. Our board literally spans 111 miles.
Up and down the coast.
Up and down the East Coast, the Southeast Coast, from the Miami border all the way up to Port St. Lucie. The Miami Realtors has all of Miami, the fourth largest city in the country. Between the two associations, we have 100,000 members. And to put that into perspective, Florida Realtors has a total of 238,000 members. So almost 50% of the membership of Florida Realtors are within two boards. The Miami Association of Realtors and the Broward Palm Beach and St. Lucie Association of Realtors. So when we look at the size and of our market and the competitiveness of our market, in order to survive, you have to be that market expert. And yes, can I sell Miami? Can I sell all the way up to St. Lucie? I'm in Boca. For me to St. Lucie is about an hour and a half drive, depending where in St. Lucie I'm going. Can I do it? Absolutely. Am I the best person to do it for my client or customer? I always ask that question. Can I provide the services they need to get the best price, terms, and conditions, and understanding the market of the area I go? If I check off the boxes and yes, I'm willing to go. If not, I'm going to refer that business to somebody else, because that is what our job is, to get the best representation. We're all licensed to sell the whole state of Florida.
Right.
We are. And even if we don't belong to an MLS in the area, there's ways of getting the information on properties throughout the whole state of Florida. But am I really the person that should be going up to Destin in the Panhandle and selling a property when I have no idea? I've never been to Destin. I don't think that's probably in the best interest of our clients and customers. So as agents, what we could do, especially in markets that are as big as Northeast Florida or the South Florida region, is get to as many networking events with other agents so that we could build relationships. Look for those agents that list property in your market that is not from your market. Pick up the phone and say, hey, I'll take your referrals. If anybody calls you, I'm willing to work with you. I'll take your referrals. Let's build a relationship. And if I have somebody in your area, I'll do the same. I think that's the way to handle these larger markets at a much higher level. But yes, I mean, we need to specialize in something. I believe in the one thing concept. And if anybody's ever read the book, The One Thing, written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, it's not a real estate book. It's a life book. It's called The One Thing. And I actually listen to this book once a month. I have it on Audible. I play it through, when I'm driving. But it has been it's been honestly the one thing that has really expanded my business and my personal life to a new level. And a lot of my coaching is based upon the one thing. And the one thing concept is, what is that one thing that we need to do today? And if we do it so well, and we concentrate on it and focus on it so well, so great, then nothing else matters. That everything else will fall into place. Nothing else matters. And for a lot of us in our life, in our business, and we might have 2 one things, but in real estate, Think about it. Lead generation is our one thing. Without lead generation, nothing else matters. If we're not talking to people, if we're not following up, if we're not having new conversations, if we're not adding people to our database, what does it matter? We'll have no business. So when I look at you asking the question about these large geographic areas, yeah, find your 2, 3, 4 subdivisions that you want to become the expert in, and become the expert in that. It's like farming. When we set up farm areas, we look for a specific area, and then we concentrate and focus, and we know everything about that market. Well, the same thing on the buyer side. We need to know everything about the buyer, and when we get good at that, we can add another one. And then when we get at that, we could add another one and expand. But do not try to be everybody's everything. A Jack and Jill of all trades, master of none. That's not going to work moving forward in this business, and especially if you want to be showing your value to the consumer. I'd rather get a referral fee, send somebody to somebody else for the 20-25%, whatever that referral fee is, and have them satisfied and have them get the best quality service that they can get while I'm concentrating on my one thing.
Mm-hmm. Could you tap a little bit deeper into, because it's a topic that I bring up often with different agents, the importance of building that networking with other agents, because I've had agents say, oh, I don't want to go to that social, it's just going to be a bunch of real estate agents and they're not buying houses, so they don't want to go there. I had Patty Ketchum made a great statement. For the first number of years, she regrets that she never cast a shadow at the board of realtors out in Tallahassee at her board, and she regrets that because of the relationships she didn't create. How important has it been? Because I think some people will look at you and say, well, you wanted to get into leadership, you're secretary of Florida Realtors, you networking is important for you to go for those aspirations. But how does it help the everyday agent to be regularly mixing and mingling and networking as far as growing their actual buying and selling business?
It's so funny you mentioned Patty Ketchum, because she's one of my favorite people. I think anybody that's ever met Patty Ketchum can't not fall in love with Patty Ketchum, right? But for those who may be listening that don't know who Patty Ketchum is, she's actually a current FREC commissioner, but she's I call her the godmother of teaching in the state of Florida.
Yes.
When it comes to instructing and learning and teaching, she teaches the LSSD, of the class that Florida Realtor instructors have to take in order to become a Florida Realtors approved instructor. She has a licensing school. She teaches. I take my instructor continuing education with Patty every 2 years. And the funny thing is, if you go online and you look at any of these groups, Lab Coat Agents, any of these groups that people ask, oh, who do I need to know in Tallahassee? The first name that comes up from everyone is Patty Ketchum.
100%.
Right. And I didn't even know that story. That Patty told you that at the beginning she didn't get involved, because as I've always known Patty Ketchum in my whole life and career. Right. And so it's very interesting to hear that. So I'm a Keller Williams University approved trainer. There's only about 150 out of 180,000 agents in the country. So I'm hired to go into market centers throughout the country to teach Keller Williams University material for the market centers, and they're usually a full day. And I pay for my own travel, I pay for my hotel, I pay for all my expenses. I get a very small stipend for teaching the classes. But where the real value is if I have 6 or 7 or 8 hours in a market center in Tennessee with 80 students, I'm building a relationship and lead generating for 8 hours. And the amount of referrals that could come from that group, I could say, if somebody that sat in one of my classes has a need to refer somebody to South Florida, they're going to pick up the phone and call me. And that's the same thing that in the volunteer world. That is the same thing in your local networking world. Okay, the more people you interact with, the more people that like and trust you, just like your clients have to like and trust you, the more referrals you're going to get. I know agents that are doing $1 million a year in gross commission income just from agent to agent referrals. There are classes, there are organizations, by referral. There's groups that just teach this, right? Not just client referrals, but agent to agent referrals. And listen, it's no different than a client referral. If you look at your group of fellow agents as another group of potential clients in lead generation, it's the same processes. Setting up plans, communicating with them, making sure that you remain top of mind with them. So it's amazing when the business that a Patty Ketchum or some other folks around this state and around the country have created just on agent to agent referrals.
Right. Well, I've had many agents come on. They love like going to the family reunion and connecting with people from all over the country and saying, "Hey, I'm in Jacksonville. Someone moving to Jacksonville," and they pride themselves on those relationships they build at those.
And you know what? Don't be embarrassed to ask for it, because that's why you're in business. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, people think maybe this is not the venue or not the place or whatever it is. The fact of the matter is, that's what we do. We lead generate every single part of a day. And one part of our lead generation is to build agent to agent relationships. And again, all relationships, no matter whether it's agent to agent relationship, client to agent relationship, mortgage broker to agent relationships, they're great. But if we never ask for the business, why did we create the relationship to begin with?
Right.
You got to ask for the business.
You just made me think, going to one of those events and not saying, "Hey, if you have someone, it's looking to move to Jacksonville, make sure they call me," kind of asking them that business. It's kind of like two people dating. Do you like, because the other person's thinking the same thing. They just haven't said it yet. They would like to get a referral if they're moving to San Antonio or something, wherever they're at.
If you're in the business mind, if you're working today in your business, you're focused now, this is your business. Every conversation has to ask for the business somewhere along the way. And there's different ways of asking for it. It may not be as direct, but every conversation has to have a point where you ask for the business.
100%. Moving transition, because eventually I want to transition into your coaching.
Great.
But mentors, we talked a little bit about brokerages, and if you want to tap on this a little bit, I think, having interviewed 170 agents, top agents actually around the state now, a lot of them here in Northeast Florida, obviously, but going to the right brokerage or finding that person in the existing brokerage that you're at that will share some time, maybe that top producer that will let you tag along, especially when you're new, or if you are a struggling agent, to find somebody that you can pair up with and mirror and kind of get some free coaching. I think a mentor is a free coach in translation there. How important is it to search out those for those who are, whether they're getting started or maybe just want to move, they want to move, they want to do more, and they don't know what it is that's holding them back?
Yeah. Great question again. And it goes back to my answer about asking for the business. If you don't ever ask if you could tag along with somebody, if you don't ask somebody if you could shadow them, if you don't ask somebody if they'd be willing to mentor you, the answer is going to be no, right? So why not ask? Let's put it that way. You can never hear a yes if you're not willing to hear the no's along the way, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I do want to start off with, and I think this is a big misconception in our business and in our brokerages, people use the term trainer, mentor, coach very interchangeably. Mm-hmm. They are absolutely three distinct different things. Good. And I think that we have to really be careful about it's like using that client and customer. Everybody says they have a client, they have a client, they have a client. Yet only about 5% of the people really do have a client because they actually are in an agency relationship with them, right? Everybody else is a customer. And people don't get that, but we hear that all the time. My client, my client, my client. And you want to have some fun? Ask them, oh, great. Do you have a buyer's agency agreement with that person? And they'll be like, no. Right? So if you want to have some fun and look at my numbers, believe me, a lot of people are using that wrong. But trainers, let's start with trainers. Trainers teaches, you go to a class, you learn a skill, like how to write a contract, right? How to use the MLS. You sit in the class for an hour or two. You say goodbye, you thank them for everything that they wanted, you move on, and hopefully you use what you learned in class. And if you don't, you maybe go back to the class again the second time to learn and ask other questions. But typically in a trainer teacher relationship, you see that instructor, you never see them again, you move on. Right? Let's swip all the way to the side of the coach, because that's what I actually do, and that's in all my 27 years, it's been my most heartwarming thing that I do, and hopefully you'll understand why.
Mm-hmm.
But coaching is 100%. Coaches don't teach you how to play the game. They don't train you. They make sure that you're getting the resources you need to get your foundation in place. And in most cases, you really don't want to coach until you have your foundation settled that you could build upon. Because a coach is then going to take your natural abilities, your foundation, and they're going to just make you help you. They're not going to make you, you're going to make you, but they're going to be a partner with you to get you better and better each and every day. Right. I have some professional athletes that are part of my market center. I've had professional athletes in my coaching program, and professional athletes actually love coaching because that's what got them to their level in their world. Right. And if you look at the greatest coaches are motivators. They work 90% of success in anything we do is mindset. Right. It's not skill set. It's mindset. The skill set's only 10%. But being in the right mindset is what's going to get you there, right? My oldest son, was a great baseball player, played in travel teams, played all over the country, but he was given a 5'6" frame, and he was a lefty, okay? And he was actually a catcher, and there's no such things as lefty catchers, but he was a catcher up until high school, and he was a good catcher. But nobody would give him the opportunity because he was a lefty to be a catcher in a further thing. So they turned him into a pitcher. But he wasn't built with an arm that could throw 100 miles an hour. It just wasn't there.
Right.
So they created it. He became a submarine pitcher, and he basically was crafty. Lefties, the ball moves a little, it confuses batters.
Mm-hmm.
He would only come in sometimes to face one batter, or to in a specific situation where they needed a ground ball, and that was his role, and that's where that's so until he found a coach that realized where his value was and what he would excel at and be part of. That's what it was. He was never getting a Division I baseball scholarship for his athletic abilities because he just wasn't built that way. But his mindset was there. With his willingness to do whatever he needed to do was there. And you know what? He did get a Division I scholarship to the University of Central Florida. He was their student manager for 4 years at the University of Central Florida on an athletic scholarship because of his mindset, because of the way he brought the positiveness and whatever he needed to do to be part of the team and to be successful. And he actually won the award at UCF in his junior year as the student manager out of all the sports at UCF of the year because of the stuff that he did. Now he's in the finance. He's a CPA, and he works in the real estate sector, and he's doing really well. But it just amazes me. He's a product of just watching what mindset can do. We all have egos. We all want to be, real estate agents are built on egos, but we got to really understand that this is a business and we have to get the best out of us and what we can do and focus on. And there's ways of giving back. There's ways of changing lives. We change lives every day. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about coaching.
So you skipped over mentor. Let's go.
I will get back to I'll get to mentor because I just wanted to touch this with the coach.
No, that's a great
because we change lives each and every day. Agents are able to change lives each and every day, right? These are the biggest financial decisions that most people are going to be making in their lives. Mm-hmm. Let's get to the mentor. The mentor is kind of a little bit in between, right? Mentors are not necessarily trained in coaching techniques, the mindset, but the mentor shows you what they have done to become successfhere I just want Anybody here that's listening, whether you're a mentor or a mentee, and I actually am a mentor in a couple of different programs today of stuff that I went through, and now I've become mentors to. Because it was successful the way I did it does not necessarily mean it's going to be successful for you. Okay? Following a mentor, when you're a mentee, the mindset is you have an open mind. I'm going to look at things. But if you want to 100% duplicate somebody else, you're never going to be successful because you're not them. Right? So you have to really pick and choose the things that you want to implement into your business. Good mentors are not afraid of telling you all their secrets. Because guess what? That holds them accountable. That makes them better. I will give anybody that's listening to this call, you want to pick up the phone and call me and ask me how I got successful? I'll give you the playbook. I'll give you every step that you need to do. If you look at Gary Keller, he wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Agent over 25 years ago, and it's still the #1 bestseller in real estate today. And he gives you the plan. If you want to make $1 million in real estate, he gives you the actual plan on how to make $1 million in real estate as an agent. Why doesn't everybody make $1 million in real estate? Very simple. They don't follow the plan. And not only don't they follow the plan, they don't have the mental capacity to want to follow the plan. It takes a lot of work. And you know what? You look at your mentor and you say, wow, I want to be that guy one day. I want to be Jeff one day. I say to my coaching guys, no, you don't. You want to be Sam. You want to be Julie. You want to be Jane. You want to be the best Julie, Sam, or Jane that you can be. But yes, take some hints from me. Take the lessons. A mentor, the biggest value of a mentor is finding out what didn't work so you don't have to go through that headache in the future. But whether it be a trainer, whether it be a mentor, whether it be a coach, Tracy, it's so important to understand. None of them are magic pills. There is not a magic pill in any one of those things. Okay? It's you. It's you that is going to be successful or not. It's you that's going to be willing to do the things you need to do or not. Plain and simple. The coach is there to help push you, prod you. There's an expression in professional sports. You don't need to get 10, 20, 30, 40, 100% better every day. You need to get 1% better each and every day. 1%. Ed Milet is another great guy that I love to follow. Ed Milet wrote a book, The Power of One, which basically means, imagine if I made one more phone call today. How could that change my life? If I did one more rep in the gym, how could that change my life? I did one more thing each and every day and compounded over time. That's going to produce a super amount of results. So they're all important, all three of those things, and they're all important at different steps of your career.
You said something when you were talking about your son in transitioning back to the coaching and what you do. And I wrote down here, the coach who understood you. Because of his uniqueness of what he did, he obviously had to find a coach who's like, okay, you know what? I could actually use him to come in for one or two batters, late in the game when we need that out type of thing. In a transition from one pitcher to another, we're going to insert him in there and to understand his value. When someone's looking for a coach such as yourself, how important is it for from the coach to really dig in to knowing a lot about, well, you can answer a lot, knowing enough about them, not just going, oh, how many sales you have last year. You got to, as a coach, what do you do to dig and find out a little bit more about it before you start, coaching?
I love that. That's the greatest question I've been asked in a very long time, because I think that is the most important part and aspect of hiring a coach. So just going through my process, when I hired my first coach, I interviewed some large national coaching companies, names that are still around today that we all know. I found some value in every single one of them. And then I was looking for the person that did it, that wrote the book, that helped that. And I wound up with a guy named Walter Sanford. And at that time, in the 80s, Walter Sanford was selling $1 million a day worth of real estate in Southern California in the 80s.
Wow.
Okay. Which probably would be $10, $20 million a day today.
Easily.
Right.
Yeah.
And he wrote the books, and I met him at a Remax actually conference. And he only coached 12 people at any one time throughout the country. Some of these coaching companies are coaching thousands of people at one time. And you're not getting the actual coach or the name on the door. You're getting somebody that was trained by the company in their systems and stuff. And that's great. And there's value to that. But I wanted the person that wrote the book. I wanted the one-on-one. So I found Walter, and at that time, I was paying $750 a month, and that was what, 18 years ago. So equate that today, it was probably quite a bit more, right?
Mhm.
But that was a lot of money at that day, and I was averaging $80,000 a year in sales, and I couldn't break through that ceiling. The year I hired Walter, I went from $80,000 to $175,000 in 1 year. A $10,000 investment brought me about $100,000 in additional income. I would say I will pay anybody out there that's listening. If you could give me $100,000 more income, I'll send you a check for $10,000.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. But I interviewed so many people before. Don't jump and hire the first coach, right? Call around, speak to people, get referrals. And your friend who loves his coach might not be the right coach for you. I as a coach, I have coaches, and I had two coaches at one point because I had two different aspects of my business and life that I wanted to focus on that required two different skill sets, quite frankly. And I have actually fired coaches or actually moved from one coach to another coach. And I've done it in my coaching program where I brought an agent to a level where I could have continued to work with them, but I knew that there was somebody that specialized in what they needed next. And I moved them to that coach. So there's reasons why sports teams have a head coach, and then they have a whole bunch of coaches that specialize in different positions and stuff like that, and strength and in mindset. Even professional athletes have a lot of mindset coaching, right? Mm-hmm. So in real estate, though, I'll just transition to me. I don't coach many people at all anymore. I actually used to have over 100 coaching clients. Right now I have 15. I've changed my focus because I focus on people that A, have the skill set to begin with, B, and when I say skill set, that means the willingness to do what they need to do in order to be successful, and are continually growing and learning, and have a learning and growing mindset. But B, I know that I could be a bigger value to those 15 people than I could ever be to 120 people. Because it's going back to my one thing. I know what I need to focus on. Now, each one of my coaching clients, it's very, very specific, their coaching. I coach to what they need, their needs to them. It's not one program. It's not one model. It's not. And by the way, I do coach inside and outside of Keller Williams. So it's not brand specific either. Okay. What I focus on is what is their need at that time. Where do they want to go? So there is a piece where you have to go deep dive into really what do they want. And what somebody tells you they want on the surface is not necessarily what they want in their heart. And we got to dig and we got to go deep. I don't believe in our business, and you can just coach business without coaching to the personal. And you mentioned this before. We're independent contractors, which means if we don't make money, we don't eat. We don't pay the rent. And that's going to affect our family lives. That's going to affect what happens in our world, how our children and everything else. So I coach to the whole. I do more transformational coaching. So we're going to talk about your business, but then we're going to also talk about your personal life and see how that all interacts. When people say they can separate business and personal life, I think you better look in the mirror again, okay? Because if you're not having a great time at home, your business is going to suffer. And if you're not having a great time in your business, your life is going to suffer. So we look at both to make sure that we're in tune with each other. Of course, we're going to focus on the business, but the question is, if the business is running well, how does that affect life? What are the things you can do in your life that you never thought you could do that the business can fund. You see, your life doesn't fund your business funds your life. So that's where the focus comes.
Well, I like how you brought there, because I think one of the misconceptions of, especially people coming from the corporate world, I know we have a lot of really young agents now coming in, some of them getting their license while they're in college, but the people, I think the agents that are out there have transitioned from another career.
Correct.
They're in corporate America 9 to 5, and they're not in the real estate industry, so at 5 o'clock they put their jacket on and go home, and they don't worry about getting an email, a text message, a phone call at 7 o'clock saying, hey, I want to see this property, or there's an issue, and we're dealing with it. When you're out there, talking to the many agents, I'm sure you get asked all the time by people about the industry and so forth, how being a real estate agent is a lifestyle, and knowing how the business affects the personal, because it's so overlapping.
Yeah, absolutely. Tracy, one of my last year, I took on a coaching client. He wasn't with Keller Williams; he was with another company, and he was referred to me by somebody. He said, "Jeff, this young guy, he needs you. Would you sit down and have a conversation with him?" And by the way, Tracy, I will have a conversation with anybody whatsoever, no obligation, no fee. I give everybody a complimentary hour to sit and talk and see if there's a way that we could work together. I can help them, because I don't take on clients unless I feel I can add value to them. It just, but even for that hour, I can guarantee you'll get something out of it that you'll use in your business. And I'm always happy to do that for people. But this young man came in, he was making $300,000 a year in GCI. He was doing about $8 million a year in production. He was 29 years old. He was at 4 different real estate companies already. And I'm sure a lot of people sitting out there saying, hey, listen, I'd be happy making $300,000 a year at 29 years old. But he was ready to quit real estate. He had no life. His relationships all fell apart in his personal life. He had no life. He was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nothing else. And he was burning himself out at the age of 29. And we sat down and I worked with him for a year. We built a business plan. He went from that $8 million in production to this year closing close to $25 million in production. But he also spent 2 weeks in Europe, twice last year. He goes to, friends. He's in a service relationship. He goes on short trips. And has hired his first administrative assistant to help take some of that load off his business. And so we created an organization where he could actually do more business. He's still a single agent by himself. He's going to he will be a millionaire real estate agent doing a GCI of over $1 million. And he has a life. And he's so much happier today. And, this is what a coach can help you with. This is, take a look at your business from that 30,000 foot level and then question you and ask you, what do you really want out of your business? What do you want out of your life? Because it's not my job to tell anybody what they should be making or doing or how hard they want to work. That's up to them. My job is when you tell me that is to help hold you accountable to that, remind you of that, and help you with the systems, building the systems and models and strategies that you're going to use to become successful in anything you want to do. So you want to make $100,000 a year? Great. You want to make $1 million a year? Great. Either person is as important to me because that's what they want.
How common is that situation that you just described with that gentleman? Because I think
it's very common, especially with top producers. I think that because you mentioned we're moving from, there's this phrase called E to P, entrepreneurial to purposeful. Okay, we all come into this business. We're kind of entrepreneurial, right? We're independent contractors. We're starting our own business. I knew right away when somebody came from the corporate world because they said, "I got a new job." This is not a job. This is a business.
Well, I got hired.
I got hired. Right. You can know right away where they're coming from. right? This is not a job. This is a business. So first thing we have to remind them is this is a business. I should have wore it today, actually. Gary Keller has a T-shirt and I wear it quite a bit. It's called Think Like a CEO. Each and every one of us are the CEO of our business, right? So the first thing we have to decide is, if I want to make $300,000 a year, as this kid was making, right? I call him a kid, 29 years old, but making $300,000 a year. Are you showing up as a $300,000 a year employee?
Oh yeah.
Basically, if I had to write a check to me for $300,000 a year and I was the CEO of this company, would I pay myself or would I fire myself? That's the first thing. And I will tell you, the biggest response for most people is, yeah, I would fire you. I would fire myself. They're not doing what they need to do for what they want to make. So I think that, and they also, that not having somebody to tell them what to do, or necessarily have the metrics that they have to meet in order to determine whether they're doing a good job or not, that's what they're missing. And that's where coaching comes in, because we could create those metrics together. We could create that business plan together. We could hold them accountable like their boss or supervisor or manager did in their previous life. So we can make them comfortable being in business, quite frankly, because it's comfortable for them to have that accountability and somebody looking at that. Right? Professional athletes have coaches, singers have coaches, actors have coaches, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies all have coaches, right? But the coach is there to help them with what they need to be helped with, not what the coach wants them to be helped with. And I think that's where you really have to find that person that is willing to say, hey, that's not the way I would do things, but I understand that's the way you want to do things. So let's figure out how's the best way we can do those things together. If you hear from a coach to comment, a good coach like me, I will never tell somebody they're wrong. But if you hear a comment, something similar to like, well, I can see why you might see that way. Have you thought of anything else that may be possible? That's a coach telling you, I think you're going down the wrong path. But they don't tell you you're wrong. And by the way, if you want to continue down that path, that's not for me to stop. It's for me to help you figure out how we're going to make that successful.
How important is it? And I was thinking that story you were telling. John Maxwell uses the lid. A lot of agents hit that lid. What he was only able in 24 hours of the day, 365 days of the year to get him to 300,000, and then of course he had no life, so he felt he had to sacrifice that, which he'd then make less money. You helped him break through the lid, and but when you're coaching, helping the agents find what because there's so many different ways to market yourself as a real estate agent. There's just, the 170 some things a real estate agent does. I'm sure there's 170 ways different people do their marketing, different social media, whatever it is. How important is it, or how often, even maybe you have a story when you're coaching, to help that agent find that thing that they love to do? Because obviously 80% of their time is really marketing themselves, their personal brand, and their reputation and so forth. But to find the best way that they love to do it, that they get out of bed every day excited that they get to do this.
You see a big smile on my face because I couldn't have said it better. The only thing I'll change is we don't do marketing. We shouldn't be spending our time on marketing. We should be spending our time on prospecting. Prospecting is for now business, right? Where the marketing is a little bit more passive. We need to be more, in today. So we do marketing and prospecting, but we're prospecting based, marketing enhanced. Where when I started, it was the exact opposite. We were marketing based and prospecting enhanced, right? We sent out postcards, we put stuff in the magazines and stuff like that. Today, it's a lot different. We have to be knocking on doors, making the phone calls and those type of things, and then let the marketing build our brand. But going back to the E2P concept, that's the concept. When we come in as entrepreneurial, we hit a ceiling or a lid, like you said, that John Maxwell uses the term. I've heard both of them, ceilings and lids, but John Maxwell is a lid. And in order to break through that ceiling or lid, we have to become purposeful in what we do. And when we become purposeful in what we do, and to give an example is, you pick up the phone, I'm going to lead generate today, I'm going to call 20 people. right? And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to call 20 people, and I know I have to do it today. And I'm going to say, hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? Hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? Hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? And I call 20 people. And at the beginning, I'm like, oh, I hope nobody answers the phone. I just want to get through these 20 calls, whatever it is, right? But when you come in with the mindset is, I'm going to get 20 listings today, and I'm going to make the calls. And I'm going to be purposeful. And I'm going to practice, and I'm going to be prepared for the conversation. I have all my objection handlers in place, I can't wait for that next person to pick up the phone, because that's my next listing. That's becoming purposeful, right? And when we become purposeful in everything that we do, and we know exactly where we want it to go, and we know the steps that we're going to take to get there, that's when we break through the lids. That's when we break through the lids. And then we set up systems and strategies that we use for each particular thing. Now, going back to the one thing concept, we cannot be masters of everything. And if you go back and look at the success of very top successful agents in the business, and when I say, I call mega agents over $6-7 million in volume, they're making a pretty nice living, right? At that point, you look at every single one of them, and you look at where their business is coming from. On average, there's not more than 4 sources of where their lead generation efforts are put towards. Number one, I'm going to give everybody this. They should write it down. It's your database. It's your database. There's not a successful top agent that I know that has not worked their database to the highest level. Your database is it. But then what is the other 2 or 3 things or 4 things that you can implement into your business? Is it door knocking? Is it farming? Is it networking? What are the different things? Is it for sale by owners? Is it expireds? And when you choose that one, until you get really, really good at it, you don't add another. It's focusing on your one thing. Right? So if your one thing is lead generation, now we break the lead generation up into 2 or 3 different types of lead generation. And we get masterful at it, and we get really good at it. And we know our conversations. We practice them every day. We have dialogue practice, and we have objection handling practice until we get so proficient in those objections for that particular type of lead generation that we go out and do. And when we get successful, and we're ready to move on, then we add another thing. Yes, I think the biggest challenge, for those who know the DISC profile, if anybody ever heard of that, DISC, the I, most great real estate agents are very high I's. And I's are great because they're influential. That's what it stands for. They're influences. But what they really lack and what the challenges are focus. They love the shiny new objects. Their attention span is usually very, very short. Okay? Because that's the type of person that they love to tell everybody everything they know, which is not what a client or customer needs. You need to know what questions to ask, because they have all the answers within them. So I'm a very high I, by the way. And that's why I read the one thing every month, because I have to keep on reminding myself that I am a high I, and I got to stop doing the things I do in order to be successful. So you were laughing and smiling. I think you know what I'm talking about. But that's the makeup of real estate agents. So we need to learn how to focus. And focusing is concentrating on your one thing, the top 20%. I think people have heard that concept, the Pareto principle. 20% of what you do will create 80% of your business. So why do we focus so much time on the 80%, not the 20%? Mm-hmm. And that's what, again, we have to make sure, and that's where accountability partners help. And that's part of coaching, is being your accountability partner to make sure that you're doing what you need to do when you need to do it. None of us, there's not a person out here that wants to be held accountable. We're adults. We all need to be held accountable.
For our listeners, I'm going to put, obviously, your information is going to be in the show notes. And so
awesome.
Reach out to you. Obviously, you're on social media and so forth. From a time standpoint, I want to transition into, because you've taken your career, current secretary of the Florida Realtors. I always make sure I pronounce that correctly. So,
if you don't get anybody right. They you got reprimanded, I know.
I think it was Cindy Hayden. She's like, make sure you pronounce that correctly. You're involved at NAR. You're involved at Florida Realtors.
Yes.
How important is it? Not every agent wants to take it to the level that you have, obviously. I mean, it's just, but how important it is, especially this day and time with the problems with insurance, really nationally. It's not just here in Florida.
Sure.
Insurance is an issue everywhere. That's one of the bigger topics. But there's things that are going behind the scenes to be aware of what's going on, and then obviously supporting, through RPAC or giving feedback to leaders like you who are up there, hopefully guiding decisions that are made that are affecting the 250,000 agents in Florida, let alone Florida housing for everybody. But how important it is to support that and be involved in some level.
I appreciate that. And sub-level is the key word here, because I do want to, this is really important. And I want to caution every single agent out there right now. Do not overextend yourself. Your business comes first, because if you don't have a business, nothing else matters, right? And I see a lot, unfortunately, agents try to get too involved on the volunteer level without making sure that their business is in order first. Okay. And I could not do what I do today. I could not do it at the level I do it today if I didn't have the support and of my business, quite frankly. Okay. So I do want to caution every agent out there, but there are ways to be involved from day one. RPAC was one of those things that you had mentioned. RPAC is our insurance policy to make sure that we have the money to lobby and do the things that we need to do on a local, state, and national level to make sure that we have an industry of a business to go to every day. Without RPAC, we would have had this business would kind of look quite a bit different. And moving forward, those RPAC dollars are going to help us get to the next iteration of what our industry is going to look like. We talked about some issues. Yes, you talk about insurance. We talk always about, attainable workforce housing, but there's other things that are facing. We have artificial intelligence, the development of artificial intelligence. That needs to be regulated at some level. And what is that going to look like in our world? Valuations in your business, valuations are important. In the last few years, we've had these automated valuations, AVMs and stuff. What does that look like compared to an appraiser, or how does the appraisal business fit in with the AVMs? There's a lot more that your RPAC dollars go to than just the hot issues of today, whether it be vacation rentals or private property rights. So whatever you can do, your investment in RPAC is the first step. Right. And then as you're able to find what your passion is, get involved in a committee at your local association, volunteer even for a day. There's things you can do for a day, things you could do over the year. But again, make sure that you're not taking away from your business in order to do that. Make sure that your business is solid for you able to do that. We talked about showing up at networking events. Those are usually after hours. They don't affect your business. It helps grow your business. You get to learn things. But it is important for you to let us know, the leaders that are in your local level, your state level, your national level, let us know what's happening in your community. Communicate with us. Send us an email, send us a text, pick up the phone and call. I know the members of the Florida leadership team, from Gia to Tim to George and Chuck and to myself. We pick up the phone, give us a call, pick up the phone. I mean, our numbers are out there. It's all Florida Realtors. We all return a call. We all pick up the phone. We're active real estate agents. You have a question about the business, we're happy to answer the business, because at the end of the day, our role is to make you productive and profitable in everything that we do. And even the decisions on the political side and, and those types of things is to make you productive and profitable.
Kim Knapp had a discussion with her last week, and she brought up something that I think a lot of people take for granted in the business, and that's the ethics. I had Patricia Delanoy from down south on, and she was talking about what it's like to be a real estate agent in France, is actually because she was talking to someone there. And, where literally, because of guidelines, ethics, standards of practice here, you don't have 6 or 7 real estate agents putting their sign in the front yard. That kind of thing that I think the average American involved in real estate takes for granted, not understanding that it's these Florida Realtors, it's NAR that's setting those standards and making the business better.
Yeah. You know, these lawsuits, unfortunately, have taken the eyes off of what's really important at the end of the day, right? I mean, listen, in any business, in any industry, there's lawsuits. It's part of life. But really, we need to focus on the core aspects of being a realtor. Mm-hmm. And that is, by far, following our code of ethics. That's what separates us from everything else. That's the value, among many others, but one of the main values of working with a realtor is they are bound by a code of ethics, right? And all of those articles are specific to protect the consumer. And that's in the best interest of the consumer. There's lots of industries that we could go to, people that are licensed or non-licensed, right? Or that have accreditations or non-accreditations. There's a reason why people have these accreditations, why they're members of these professional associations. And having that ability for us to self-police, for better words, our industry, to make sure that we're all following the code of ethics that we have agreed to, is in the best interest of the consumer. It truly is.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be focusing on. What's in the best interest of the consumer?
I've seen some stuff on, and actually one of the reasons why I was kind of smiling earlier, because it popped up on my screen, and I haven't looked at this video, but it's a huge, real estate agents in the United States are paper pushers. And there are people out there who are trying, in my mind, or my perception, take the business down or devalue the real estate agent.
Yeah. You know what? And we can't let that happen. And the only way we're not going to let that happen is by going direct to the consumer and explaining our value, and showing our value. And showing our value on everything that we do each and every day, every second of the day. Listen, your industry has gone through iterations, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when the online business started, right? And now we realize there's a value of having that local loan officer, that person that's in the community, that isn't in the state of Florida alone. I mean, at least we don't have that issue where people from Alaska could, sell property in the state of Florida, right? There's things that are specific. Like you mentioned insurance. I've had so many deals fall apart from a loan officer that didn't understand our insurance issues or condo requirements, or things that are specific to Florida. I mean, it's great that you can write in all the states, and if you're doing a single family home that with no HOA and it's pretty clear, okay, maybe that you could do it. But there's so many things that are specific to the state of Florida. You want everybody in that transaction to know really what's happening in that market area.
Right. And I could speak from example on that. When I had my first 8.5 years, I was in Michigan at the time in 2005 and started working with Quicken Loans, now Rocket. And when we started doing purchase business, probably in 2009, 2010, because the refi, they realized that eventually the rates would rise, right? Of course, it took 12 years later or whatever before rates rose or where we're at now, to where there's no refi business pretty much. They realized they needed to open the purchase side. So being and talking to people in Florida, they didn't know what the customary fees were. So they were quoting their customers basically all the fees, because that's what the law says. We got to put forth every possible fee they could possibly be charged, not realizing what's customary in Florida for the seller to pick up, for example.
Right. Even like the issue of taxes paid in arrears, that doesn't happen in most states, right? And homesteading. And, I had a VA loan where, I mean, they were shocked when it came to, they had the wrong quote on insurance, because it was so off on the insurance quote, because it just wasn't customary in Texas. They used numbers that they were familiar with in Texas, right? So there's just so many different aspects that is important. And by the way, our code of ethics clearly states that you should not be doing business in areas that you don't have expertise. In our code of ethics.
100%.
Right?
I want to finish up with you here. This has been a great conversation, and I think you and I could probably talk for hours. But
Oh my God, this may be the longest podcast I've ever been on.
we could do it Joe Rogan style. Talk. But there's so much great information out there, and I'm hoping that when we spin some reels off of here, obviously the full video will be on YouTube. It's already over on Facebook, and I'll make sure we're friends on Facebook so I can share it or put it on your page there. But I just want to finish up with a very simple question from an experienced real estate agent who's really in touch with what's going on, our insurance issues and everything. What do you think? You've mentioned several times during the show that focus on what's in front of you, prospecting, and doing the steps to keep your business moving forward. Give 3 things that an agent with the current market conditions, rates are at a 3-month high, the inventory's not there for the demand, especially here in Northeast Florida. I'm sure Boca Raton probably has the same issues there. What are 3 things that every agent should be doing right now?
So, very interesting. First of all, we have to get really good at our skills. We have to constantly get better and better. Educate. In 27 years, I don't know everything, right? Mm-hmm. We have to constantly, every single day, work on that 1%. Each and every one of us. You, me, everyone out here. No matter how successful. Because when you get successful, everybody's trying to knock you down. Everybody's trying to take that business. Right? So that you have to make sure that you're constantly on your game. You can never, ever, ever get lazy or laid back. You have to constantly be pushing for that 1%. Getting better at your skills. Find somebody to role play with. Find somebody to work on your conversation practice with. Find somebody to work on objection handling with. There's lots of stuff, like you said, out there on the internet. There's a lot of YouTube channels, but there's nothing better than getting in there and having those conversations. By the way, I do, when you put out my information, if anybody wants to contact me, I'll send them a link every morning at 7:45 a.m. for about a half an hour, 30 to 40 minutes. We do a role play every morning, kind of a round robin role play with agents, go through objection handlers and that type of stuff. And if I'm not traveling, I'm on that call myself every single morning at 7:45 a.m. So feel free to jump on it.
Anyone that you're coaching,
anybody that wants to jump on, I'm happy to do that. As a matter of fact, when I started that a few years ago, there was an agent from Fort Myers, a brand new agent from Fort Myers. Her name was Natalie Turnquist, who jumped on that call, was on that call every single day. She was actually one of my classes. That's how she got the call. And when my sister wanted to buy a house in Parrish, north of Sarasota, here in Florida, I referred her to Natalie because she was on my call every single day. And for being on that call, Natalie wound up with a $20,000 commission for just being on that call. And so I love to get agents from all over the state, involved in that call. So because it creates a network, like we said before. But that's number one. Number two,
send me that link, and I will.
I absolutely will. I definitely will.
Yeah.
I definitely will. And number two is, it is super important that we continue to show our value. Your value proposition, telling your story, that is something that I work with in my coaching program. The first step of every one of my coaching program, no matter what level you're at, is to make sure that we have your 30-second elevator pitch down and that we know what your value is. If somebody says, why should I choose you out of 238,000 real estate agents in the state of Florida, realtors, I'm sorry, almost 400,000 real estate agents in the state of Florida, why should I choose you? It comes down to that 30-second elevator pitch. Because quite frankly, you only have 10 to 12 seconds to capture somebody. Mm-hmm. They decide in 10 to 12 seconds whether they're interested in doing business with you or not. You could go on and on for an hour. It doesn't matter. In the first 10 to 12 seconds, they've decided whether they're interested in doing business with you or not. So you got to find a way to capture them like that. You need to know your value proposition. You need to know it. And it needs to just roll off your tongue simply. And we all need, especially you buyer agents out there, we need to get proficient in using buyer agency agreements as part of our value proposition. And there is a value in using the buyer agency agreement. There's a value for the consumer in you using a buyer's agency agreement. It allows you to represent them in a different way at a higher level. and more concentrated on their best interest. So please make sure you learn the buyer agency agreement. You take classes on it. I know Florida Realtors is giving a ton of courses on it. NAR is giving a ton of courses on it. ABR, Accredited Buyers Representative, a great designation to get. I got that 23 years ago. Great designation to get. So education, value proposition, and working on your skills and getting better and better every day.
100%. Jeff, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to throw out there? I like that. There's a group that does they call it the Breakfast Club for loan officers. They're doing something similar to your thing there. Do you guys actually have a name to this group that you have?
Yeah, we call it Miracle Mornings. We call it Miracle Mornings because it's a way of getting us just started. A day started. It goes to that Miracle Morning concept that from the book. It's just a good way to get things going. It gets us. You warm up before a player gets on the field. They warm up, right? This is the warm ups. This is where we get all the kinks out, and we get into the right mindset. There is a little bit of mindset that's thrown in there too, and we call it Miracle Morning.
Someone can actually just get on, through their phone and be listening to the others.
It's a Zoom link. That's all it is. It's a Zoom link. You're taking the kids to school or whatever it is. Again, if the value is to get involved and we have one agent become the consumer and one agent become the agent. Whatever you want to practice. If you're doing for sale by owners, if you're just doing care calls, whatever you want to practice. Right. But you'll listen. The value's in the listening and listening to the other agents, right? And seeing how they handle the objections. And I'm going to tell you, everybody starts off not the greatest, but I'm going to tell you, within a couple of weeks, you could see the improvement. It's amazing. And I've been doing this now I have people that have been on there for way over a year now. Wouldn't miss a morning of it. It becomes a habit, right?
You wouldn't keep doing it unless you saw value in it. And obviously they're tipping in for their next tip.
There you go.
It's obviously helped them close a deal or whatever it was, move the needle for them.
There you go.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. And again, if anybody wants to reach out at any time, feel free. I'm there. We can set up a call, like I said, a Zoom. Doesn't matter where you are. Your issues are the same as everybody's issues in South Florida or the West Coast of California or Michigan. They're all the same. Real estate agents have the same issues across the board. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with your audience.
Excellent. You have a great day, Jeff.